Archaeologists have yet to recover the actual wooden lampstands from the first century. They have found none. They assume that they did exist, but they have found the lamps carved of stone or seashells, but the thing upon which the lamp rested, the lampstand, has long since decayed in the dirt, leaving only the rare discovery of an occasional bronze lampstand or even a golden lampstand. They're usually found, of course, in ancient palace ruins or temple ruins. They're not just the ordinary riffraff kind of lampstand. And so, for me, it's fascinating to hear in the opening words of the book of Revelation, which is originally targeted toward these 7 congregations of Asia Minor, how they are the 7 golden lampstands. And this symbol throughout, right, the 22 chapters of the book of Revelation would seem to suggest that these churches are worth something. They're valuable. They're precious. It's not just God who is worthy, right, but the churches that are made worthy. But sadly, if you go to those places today, ancient Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Laodicea, Philadelphia, those congregations are gone. They don't exist. Originally, right, when John the seer was writing these frail communities, he was writing to a people, a group of people in a particular place, in a particular time. And he would convey to them a message. And the text uses words like angels. Do you believe in angels? I don't know, I'm kind of dubious sometimes about angels and people referring to angels. But the angels in this text are meant to symbolize what? The church message. Angelos, right, in the Greek can also be translated as messenger. And in the Bible, throughout the Bible, that's what angels do. Angels bring messages. They're not just the guardian angels of mythology, right? They're meant to bring a message. It happened with Abram when 3 young men, 3 strangers, came to his encampment and they told Sarai, his wife, that she would bear a child in her old age. And remember, Sarai laughed, and one of the strangers said, why does she laugh, right? In Jacob, later on in Genesis, he's running away from his brother Esau, and at night he's off by himself and he wrestles with a young man, an angel, right? And he says, I won't let you go until you bless me. It happens with Isaiah when these snake-like creatures, these seraphim, fly around the temple, and Isaiah says, woe is me, I'm a person of unclean lips. And one of the angelic seraphim takes a hot coal and touches his lips with it and says, now that we've touched your lips, now you can speak. So again and again, when angels are referenced in the Bible, and I assume in the book of Revelation, what we're meant to understand is not kind of supernatural hocus pocus, but the message, right? The message that God wants to convey, and God helping us kind of understand the import of what God is doing. Now, I want you to notice that I use the word us, because as a community of faith, we're included. The congregations of the first century are gone, but we share with them a similar kind of thing. I mean, I know we have cushioned chairs and nice heating and air conditioning and, all this great luxury, but we share with them the same practice of gathering together on the Lord's Day, right? And we're celebrating and honoring the message of the gospel. Those churches back in the first century lived their life cycles. Like every organism, right? A church has a life cycle. You familiar with this? Every church has a life cycle, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it also has a time during which it may reproduce or give birth. Jesus once said, whenever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Right? And this is the birthing of worshiping communities again and again and again. A lot of you know that I attended Penn State, and they lost again yesterday. I went to Penn State University for my undergrad, and in the 1980s, there was a great thrill, right, for me, 18, 19 years old, to enter Beaver Stadium, and I think they had close to 100,000 people there, and one half of the stadium would say, "We are," right, and the other half would say, "Penn State." Right? And it was this loud, cacophonous roar. And I remember feeling like a sense of strange pride, right, in that. Like, this is my school, and we are Penn State, we are Penn State. A few weeks into the season that I was up there, though, they would change the chant. They would make it for the coach at the time, Joe Paterno. And they would say, "Joe Paterno, Joe Paterno," right? And we'd honor kind of this specific man. Well, flash forward many decades, and sadly, Joe Paterno in his 80s was apparently complicit in a scandal of sexual abuse, right? One of his assistant coaches abused young children on campus, in the facilities, and was told about it. Joe Paterno was told about it, and he didn't do anything. He didn't confront the situation. And so Penn State, instead of being a source of pride, became a source of, for me, shame. Well, just recently, Penn State football has taken a turn, and they did a little story on the origin of the original cheer, "We are Penn State." And here it is. It turns out back in the 1940s, Penn State was one of the first football teams at the collegiate level to include an African-American player. And the player's name was Wallace Triplett. And as the team was scheduled to play Alabama in the 1940s, the coaches there in Alabama said they would not play if Penn State brought that Negro football player. And in response, the team gathered together, took a picture with Wallace Triplett right there in the middle. They held up their hands and they said, "We are Penn State. And Wallace is with us. We are Penn State." Now, I'm not telling you that story to necessarily compare church to football, but I am saying the organizing principle of a community of faith matters, right? It's not Joe Paterno, right? It's not Julie, right? It's not Scott Kinder-Pyle. It's not Dan Clinton. It's not Rick. It's not Red Hawk Rice-Sauer or Josh, right? As great as all these individuals have been and are for us, it's us, right? Gathered around the message of Jesus of Nazareth. The church exists not to promote itself. We are origin, right? But the church exists for the message, for the angel. However that gets communicated, right? In word and deed, by things we do, by things we don't do. What a church should never try to be is the answer man, I think, for a community. right? Come to our church and we'll tell you the answers, right? I've seen postcards to this effect, right, from other various churches, right? Come, we'll feed you the truth, right? We're Bible believing, right? Rather than doing what the Bible itself does, which is it stewards to us the mysteries of God, right? It says there are some things, right, about God's love and God's grace that are so mysterious we don't dare, right, try to explain them away. I don't know if anyone's ever been there for the death of a congregation, but I have. It's a sad kind of thing, right? You try to honor the years of tradition that have happened, but when you come to the end of a church's life, you simply have to say enough, right? The church, capital C, will continue, but this individual congregation has served out its life purpose for whatever reason, right? There was a church in the Philadelphia area, in the Germantown section of Philadelphia, that dwindled from 800 men, women, and children to 20. And the reason was the neighborhood changed. It changed from a white, Eurocentric community to an African American neighborhood, and the church never adjusted for the new population. And so people that had moved out to the suburbs, right, would commute in, right, to the Germantown, and they would have like the 20 of them huddled in the fellowship hall. The only way to access the original worship space, the sanctuary, which again would seat 800 people, would be we had to sidestep these piles of raccoon feces, right? Raccoons had broken into the church. And there was the stench of kind of black mold or something creeping down from the old choir loft. And I, as a new church pastor, in 1996, I went there to basically loot the place, right? Are there things that I can take and use from this old church that they don't need anymore for our new church? So we took a baptismal font, we took a communion table, and we took a lampstand. But as we were leaving, I spotted on the wall in the fellowship hall this plaque. It was about 10 inches by 18, a wooden plaque that had been dedicated to the memory of a young girl who fell through the ice during the winter thaw of 1910 and drowned. It was a plaque kind of in her memory. And I thought, they forgot her. How could they possibly forget this plaque? And then I thought, they forgot her until now. I'm remembering her. I hereby remember this girl who drowned. And if I can remember her just in this passing moment, what about the one who is and who was and who is to come? What about his memory? Do I believe that God in Christ, right, can pull that shivering girl from that frozen river in which she drowned and bring her back home? And I have to say, there are moments when I don't believe it, but today I do. Churches sometimes imagine that they're doing these great things by erecting plaques or memorials, right? Have you ever been to a church where, Cheryl, my wife, grew up in a church with like a gated pew, right? And on the gates of the pews, right, were this pew dedicated to this particular family, right? And, if you sat in that pew, you felt like you were, not supposed to be there somehow, right? I'm here to say all those memorials, all those plaques will decay. They'll go. What won't go, what won't come and go, is the message that in Jesus Christ we are loved and invited into an eternal communion. When I saw him, says John, I fell at his feet as though dead, but he placed his right hand on me, saying, Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last and the living one. I was dead, and see, I'm alive forever and ever, and I have the keys of death and of Hades. Now write down what you've seen. We write down all kinds of things. Why not that? A few weeks ago, I was going to mention this to Jim. The originally scribbled lyrics of American Pie were sold at auction for lots of money, right? So you being a songwriter, just you never know, right? Lots of money. American Pie, do you remember the song? Don McLean wrote it, and it was always kind of very mysterious, but he finally admitted the original inspiration for the song was the death of Buddy Holly, right, who was this really popular musician. He was looking for a place